growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, it's Dr. Steve Rasner and welcome back to The Lionhearted. This week I want to begin by first thanking those of you that continue to pop my podcast and me in your ear, whether it's on the way to the gym or work or whatever it is. And it means a lot to me that I might be guiding you in a proper direction or giving you thought-provocative things that will lay a good foundation for you as it has for me. And I especially want to thank those of you, and there's been many of you, that have taken the time to email me and write such unbelievably poignant and personal expressions of what's going on in your practice and can I give you my opinion on this or that. They're actually rather moving at times, and I'm pretty sure that's why I continue to do this. So thank you, and you can continue to write to me at my personal email. It's archaic, but the email is Dr. Rasner, DrRasner at AOL. So let's get to what we're going to talk about in this segment. I've talked about a lot of things in the last year plus, and you're going to get variations of those as I continue. And one of those is the anatomy of a multi-million-dollar solo practice. In other words, how does that really happen? How does a solo practice do 3.5 mil per year? You've heard me say many times my organization does 4 point something, and I don't know if I've said this on earlier podcasts, but I have two offices. My original office is 15 miles from my present office, and my associate of 30 years produces a mill there. And I got to tell you that that's an extraordinary feat in itself if you really knew the geographic and economic climate of that region. It's unbelievable. And they do it following the principles that I lay out on this show. So, when I thought about this week's program, I thought, I'm sure some people, I hope there's not, think maybe I'm exaggerating or what, and maybe have trouble making sense of it all, because it is big numbers. And even I, at times, seriously, I'm in the middle of this business we keep talking about, and I've done it for so long. We've been doing over 4 mil for two offices combined for over 14 years. The exception of 2009, 10, and 11, as I've told you, when I got caught up in the recession. And that was one of 4 recessions, the only one that ever affected me. We had other recessions that we performed quite nicely without it. So how does it happen? Do I work 16 hours a day? Well, I don't. Do I work 5-6 days a week? No. My working schedule is pretty much 9, and I don't always start at 9. I like to get to the office in time to do all the things that have nothing to do with productivity. Calling back a doctor that I referred something to, an orthodontist. Making a phone call to a patient because my office manager, Michelle, makes it a habit for me to do something every single day that has nothing to do with anything except bonding and establishing a relationship-based practice. If you relied on me to come up and remember to do that every day, it wouldn't happen. And it can be signing a card. It can be a phone call. It can be a visit to either the patient's house or a hospital. Everything I'm telling you, to be honest with you, is not unique to a successful dental practice. It is the pattern of any successful business. And that pattern is there are rules and regulations that you've set out to govern the efficiency of this machine you've put together. Because quite honestly, when you ascend into that level of productivity, it is a machine. So before I get to that, I want to talk about something very much related and very important that you need to ask yourself. You need to ask yourself, Well, why? What's the end carrot for you? These podcasts have been dedicated to a laundry list of things that I hope that you try or follow and have an impact on your professional and your personal lives the way they have on me. What's the stick for me, the carrot stick? I don't even know if that's the right term, by the way. What's at the end of the rainbow for doing all the stuff I do? Well, I do work 4 days a week, getting to do something I like to do each day. I mean, not always. I still have to do fillings sometimes. If a patient wants me, that's who they're getting. And sometimes the same guy that's capable of producing thousands of dollars in a given hour is doing a buccal filling on number 30. Or maybe it's a new patient. Maybe it's a brand new patient that I met last week. And I want the first experience to be absolutely with just me. Why? Because I have tremendous confidence in myself that I can execute whatever procedure and have that patient leave, but have them think and feel a palpable difference wherever they went before. And does that happen 100% of the time? No. But that's what I shoot for. So sometimes I do fillings. But I want to go back to what I'm saying because it's important. And by the way, this may spill into 2 podcasts. Remember, what am I talking about? I'm talking about how do I make it really happen? What is the anatomy? What goes in to having weeks where you collect between $80,000 and $140,000, which averages about $80,000 to $90,000 per week in the one office. It's huge. I know it is. And I want to make something really, really clear. And I'm not trying to sound parochial when I'm saying this to you. If you're just doing it for the money, then you're following the wrong podcast. You should get on the podcast if they're out there where you can have multiple offices and hire the cheapest help and buy the cheapest products and get rid of your employees before they've been there too long so you don't have to pay them a lot or give them pension plans, and hire young doctors. No reflection that all young doctors aren't good doctors, by the way. I'm just saying that the patient's experiences, they get a different doctor every time. And you got 5 to 7, 8 operations like this going on. That is not this podcast. If you're just doing it for the money, that isn't what this is. And I think it makes it even better for you to follow this because the truth is we all do what we're doing, right? Because it makes us happy inside. I went to a dental school that I was surrounded by what seemed like to me way more talented human beings than me. They seemed smarter. They seemed better even with their hands. I never thought they were any better with people, though, relating to people. And in fact, when we got to the clinic, when we got in our 3rd and 4th years, as I'm sure many of you can identify with, I excelled. I excelled right in, even through my board exams, because I had amazing relationships and was blessed, whatever that comes from, with the patients that I had to finish for dental school and with whatever auxiliary staff that Penn supplied us back then. Like one assistant would be for 7 doctors or something. And, I was very gracious and those were good relationships for me. So when I got out of dental school, I don't think I thought I was as good as a lot of them. And it set me on a path to get better. That's just how I'm built. And so I took course after course. I probably have to take more courses than anyone listening to get really good at whatever I'm trying to get good at. But that's what I'm like. I'll take it 5 times until I think I am pretty good at doing whatever I'm doing. And I think that is a good quality to have and for you to have. And so if you're in it just to walk through procedures or hire auxiliary dentist to produce all this stuff, then that's not, to me, what the end of the rainbow is for doing this. An average day for me can be, a root canal that's in my schedule that I feel pretty good about these days. I gave up root canals for probably 10 years. And then somehow, some way, rotary endodontics came to be, and I've gotten very comfortable, and I think my outcomes are pretty good on anterior teeth. I refer out. Does that shock you? I refer out molar endos. And that's a good point of my philosophy, by the way. I want you to hear me on this. I think my office does really, really good crown and bridge really good implants, really good dentures, whatever the services are, really good periodontal plastic procedures. And over my career, I would always hire dentists to do the molar endos. And they were kind of, I mean, patients didn't complain about them most of the time, but I had way higher degree of failures with that than I did with any other procedures we did. And, patient coming back saying, the tooth still hurts. And I'd have to refer it to have it retreated, or maybe we lost the tooth. And I just came to the reckoning a while back that it's not that important to me. And some of the dentists I had that provided the molar endo were endodontists. So an endodontist is not an endodontist is not an endodontist. And so if I'm really who I think I am or want to be, I refer them out. Unless some miracle guy walks in my office. And a miracle great endodontist has probably got his own gig. So, and I'm sure I'm not alone, and I'm sure I'm not unique in that approach. I'm sure a lot of dentists have guys come in, provide services. Are they really providing the services that are tantamount to your skill level, whatever you're providing? So no, for me, I think it's just a consequence. I really do. I think the numbers are simply a consequence of the investment I made of everything I've done, including a wide range of clinical skills. And if you're tuning in for the first time, and those of you aren't, ad nauseum, you've heard me say, well, what are those clinical skills? Well, it's providing, without a doubt, the oral sedation that I just did 2 podcasts on is the overwhelming ride why most new patients come into my office. They've heard that we do it. I work in southern New Jersey. I don't know, literally, as I'm speaking to you, of one dentist in an hour radius that has an oral sedation permit and provides the sedation as we do. I don't know of one. Be honest with you, I'm kind of happy about it. So that's the number one thing to do, to blow up your phone, right? The other thing would be having a skill set that I taught this weekend to 10 doctors from across the country, and that's atraumatic extractions. I had 10 young docs, and you guys are getting younger and younger, or I'm just getting older and older, come in, and it's inspiring. There's so many young studs on their way to having marvelous careers. And I hope I had a teeny weeny bit to do with that, because one of the guys was from California, and he works in public health, by the way. And he spent $35,000 in the last 5 years taking CE, some of which I've recommended for him. And, I don't think he even knows that he's a stud. But the second skill is taking teeth out for real, atraumatically. That means you don't have a patient in a chair for 40 minutes working on one tooth and sweating and ripping the gingival tissues and breaking off roots. So if any of you have an interest in that, I will tell you that we're sold out until the fall. The fall is still open. I believe there's 1 course left in the fall. We limit it to 10 or 8. We have observers too. And there's also 1 clinical implant course in the fall as well, where you can work live, hands-on, and under my tutelage on people that I've selected carefully for the course. We walk you through it. It's not why I'm doing this podcast, but I just taught it this whole weekend. So it's a little ridiculous for me not to bring it up. And to all those that were there, if you're listening this week, you inspire me. I'm really in awe, not just because you came to my course, because you take so many other courses, and you're doing the right thing. I go off tangent all the time. So it's oral sedation, it's atraumatic removal of teeth. And by the way, the reason is because once you market and brand that you do this, you're going to get patients that haven't been to a dentist in a long time. They are searching for their first dentist that doesn't hurt them. So, and then the third thing is that if you learn the skill set involved in atraumatic extractions and bone grafting, because you have to bone graft today. You didn't 15 years ago, but today it's a standard of care, in my opinion, whether you're doing implants or not. So the third one is just, if nothing else, a scope of, we'll call it easier implants in the regions of the mouth where they are easier. North mesial of all the molars, so the anteriors. I mean, an anterior requires a lot of skill too. But, learning to place in the mental foramen area in the mouth. You can have an amazing career just doing that and not even get into sinus lifts and posterior areas that need ramus grafts and augmenting bone and all these things. You could be so busy that you don't need anything but beyond that. Let me go back and tell you how the numbers happen for me. I think they are simply the consequence of doing the things I'm teaching you or sharing with you on these podcasts. It's having a wide range of skill set. That's number one. You're only going to get that. There's no other way to get that, by making a financial and time investment in CE. That's it. And I'm in the middle still of trying to revamp my CE recommendations. I used to have a 4-year residency that I designed after what I've done. And then after that, I figure you're on your own. You'll figure it out. And I am changing some of it. I could give any of you that what I have going so far. It's not like it's obsolete. I'm not going to make this a federal secret. I mean, I recommend the Spear Institute in Phoenix for a lot of restorative skills. I recommend Bill Strupp and Mike Brum in Clearwater, Florida, and are going to be in San Diego on June 6th and 7th, of which I'm going to, I believe. That's an amazing 2-day course. Not that much money, worth every penny. You will love Bill Strupp and Mike Brum. And they'll show you the other side, by the way, of saving teeth that you didn't dream that you could save. I'm doing core buildups on molars that slide after slide, case after case. It's mind-boggling what they do. So CE is where it starts. I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you something else. Have an amazing personality. That is part of it. It is, but it's not number one. So in like 1 minute, if somebody asks me, well, what's the magic that, and it's not going to be a minute. I'm going to carry this out over a few podcasts. But the compendium is this. Great range of being really good at variety of clinical skills. I mean, I took numerous denture courses. I did. Because none of us are very good at those when we get out of school. And it couldn't be anything more boring than hearing about border molding your impression tray and the neutral zone and all the things. Oh my God. I mean, compared to surgery at this stage in my career, it's quite boring. I mean, I must have taken 6 courses just because I wanted our dentures, if I had to make a denture, to look and feel better than anything that patient's ever had. And by the way, if it's their second or third denture, you can make it look good. You can follow all the rules, but they don't fit that well. That's just the truth. I don't have to convince you of that, particularly the mandible. So it is rare that I will treatment plan a lower denture or accept if that's what the patient wants. And if they do, I assure you I have them sign their life away on what their expectations should be. But it's investing in a team. Now, what do I mean when I say investing in a team? Well, number one, finding that team. That can be a lifetime journey, but it's really not. It's about those early years. I remember it. I remember seeing somebody at a retail store that just stood out. You meet people like this at Macy's. I don't know if you'd have Macy's wherever you're listening to me from today, but back in the day when Macy's was a healthy business enterprise, I would go there to buy things. And I remember pursuing and recruiting somebody. I would think twice. I'd have my cards on me. It could be a waitress, our bank teller, my 39-year employee. 39, Michelle, that you hear me talk about all the time. She was a bank teller. That's where I got her from. Okay? I mean, obviously we can't do that with licensed positions in our office, but it's them. It's the symphony. And I would tell you that if Anything, I'm probably overstaffed in general. I don't really think that's a mistake. People certainly don't walk into my business and feel like they're left alone at any time during the process, during the journey. Do you have protocols? You hear me talk about this concept of protocols from time to time in these podcasts. I know I go off track. I've already said that, but before I get too far off. So I'm not up here telling you, because I work long hours, I'm not up telling you that my prices are so low that I get tons of people. It's the opposite. It's not that. And I will say this to you, that in my region of the United States, if you can have a market like I do, we are one of the worst economic regions in the whole United States. Look it up. Cumberland County, New Jersey. Don't listen to me. Google it. It's bleak, and it has been for the 39 years I've been here. And yet we have some of the most competitive fees in terms of being good fees with anybody at any place in the United States, and had for many, many years. And it's because I don't know how you can invest when I'm telling you to invest, and then you learn better ways of doing things that require more time. It requires better staff members to execute for you. I don't know how you can do that and have to be the lowest guy in town. That's magic I have. So it's not I have low fees. I have fees that most of you would probably be very happy to have. Okay? And I have an abundance, not 100%, but an abundance of patients, even in my market, that appreciate and seek out. And by the way, they have friends that appreciate and seek out this kind of service in the dental industry. That's what it is. So it's a whole experience. And every successful business, not just dentist, probably has very defined rules and regulations. I hate those words, but that govern the operations of that business. And mine are defined by things called protocols. I even wrote a book. It was the first book I ever wrote, called The Protocol Book. It's still available, by the way, if you write to Beth. It's a great book. There's no doubt you'd love it. So what I did real quick is I got tired of not knowing what I call what to do when. My hygienist would come in and say, the out-of-town hygiene patient's 30 minutes late. She just got here. What should I do? I had a protocol for that. By the way, we see them. But it's worked into the system. Like you're going to have to grow and evolve. I mean, if you have 2 rooms that you're working out of, you can't incorporate some of the protocols I have. You know, what do you do when a temporary's out? How do you start the day? There are list by list. How do we answer the phone? Call my office. It better be answered on the 3rd ring maximally, or somebody violated protocol. And do they do that? Yeah, they do that. I'm not a watchdog. I'm not a prison ward. But I have rules and regulations called protocols that, a morning meeting is not optional. If I'm late and don't get there on time, which never used to happen, you don't skip the morning meeting, because you will never ever have a more productive day without a morning meeting, or a smoother day. Because why? Because human beings made that schedule. It wasn't just made in an hour. It's made over weeks and weeks. Are the lab cases back? Is somebody coming from out of town? What are they expecting today? Is it a delivery day of a case? Do we have any new patients on the schedule? Do we have any special need patients today? Special need could be an older patient that needs a silky scarf for her hair, because she's always brought that up to us over the years she's been our patient. Is there any birthdays, anniversaries, any old debt, which isn't a big problem in my practice in general? So you feel me? Can you tell how when I talk about this, it's a conglomerate of things, in my case, that ended up with the numbers that they are. It's fine with me if we did half of it. I'm 65. First of all, we might say, why don't you just retire? Because I love what I do. That's why. It's a cool thing, man. It's the only thing in the world I'm really good at. I'm trying to get good at tennis, and that ain't working out so well. So those of you that can physically see me today, I played today, so I look a little beat up, but that's not why you're tuning in. So I know this podcast is getting on the long side, and I just want to say to you, I do want to execute this and carry this out for a couple podcasts And again, my theme of trying to teach is, well, how do you make it all work? And I'm going to define for you in great detail key protocols that I think you should have going on. Meetings. If you're earlier in your career, if you're in the first 10 years, you're going to have to dedicate. It's not just taking courses, guys. What if you're the greatest dentist in Indiana or California or Minnesota, Montana, but you have a crappy front desk team that clocks in and they're not engineered in your style. They don't have any concept of how to make people feel value. Or maybe they do it on some days and other days they don't, which means they can show up late if they want to. They can answer the phone on the fifth ring or not at all. They can be disrespectful to fellow staff members and possibly even patients. And we've talked about this before, about branding and trust and all the little things that go into this equation. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to go into work tomorrow. It's a Sunday today. And so are you. And the people that fill your reception room or that are in the operatories have made a commitment and an investment in you. And how strong that bond is depends on a series of things. If you're just a crappy clinician and you haven't tried to get better, and you're no different than anybody else around, then what if you do the atraumatic extractions that I talk about, but you don't think it's important to sedate them? That's not atraumatic. You can't edentulate a patient without sedating them at some level, in my opinion. It's mean. What if, you're always running late? What if your staff doesn't know what's important to you to execute on an everyday level? I know you've heard a lot of these principles before, but there's just never enough reminders to operating at this lofty level that some of you listening aspire to. And like I said, even if you didn't ever get close to this level, what if you did half? And one of the things I'll talk about also is controlling your debt early in your career. Every successful dentist, ultra successful dentist that I know, every fulfilled, happy dentist, unless somebody left them a lot of money, they saved early on in their career and were conservative and disciplined as to how they spent money. And that's, man, if you can do that, then, if I keep working 4 days a week, I'm going to produce what I produce. The model's been pretty clear. We got to talk about what's the message that you need to put out in the community too, and how do you get that message out there? In other words, we got to get real detailed now for those of you that are listening and require it and want to grow. I hope this helped. I always hope I help you, and I love when you write to me, so let me know you're listening, and then I'll see you next week on The Lionhearted. Thanks.